That sucks. Shawn Carlson, Blackjack 98 Enterprises. The project that you see behind me is a Stihl blower. Today's date is Saturday, November 1st, 2025. And look at this gorgeous Vancouver weather that you are seeing. Okay, so let's turn my camera around and have a look at my next project. A repeat customer has brought this to me. A repeat customer has brought this to me after fixing 3 of his previous blowers and 1 weed whacker. What I want to tell everybody is this will be my second backpack blower rebuild. This will be my 9th Stihl engine that I have rebuilt and worked on. This is my 39th small engine project that I have worked on entirely with everything else. So if yours looks like this, pay attention to this video because I'm going to strip everything down, including the handle here. The problem that the customer was having was the fact that this joint here, where the cable goes through for the throttle, he can depress it, but it doesn't repress back. It doesn't have that spring locking. There's not enough spring tension in here for this elbow, and it's kind of kinked. So it's kinked right there. So we're going to look at that. Okay, so if you're wanting to know how this works, the engine air, or the air, gets sucked into here by the engine. It gets sucked in like a vacuum with a fan, and it goes around this tube and out the arm. What's under here is the engine, and that powers that fan. And because it's a backpack blower, it's a bigger engine. So we will get an idea of what the engine looks like once we get it tore down. And for those of you that are wondering, well, does the engine really need to be tore down for one simple thing? And the answer is yes, because that is what I do. I tear engines down and rebuild them so that way they can run functionally, perfectly, like the original manufacturer's specs. And by taking this engine down, you all will have an idea of what to expect and what to look for when you go to work on yours. Okay, so, oh, look at that. If there's numbers on here, is there numbers on there? No. There's probably serial numbers and stuff on this engine here that I can't see right now, but we'll find them later. So, let's get to it. First thing that we're going to do is we're going to remove the handle. And the way that we do that is we use a flathead screwdriver and we put it into there and start screwing it out. And this bolt here. It will come loose enough that it will just go over this here and slide right off, okay? Once we got that off, then we can take the arm off. In order for this arm part to come off, you gotta take off this screw, loosen, and then this crack will open up just enough that you can just slide this out. Okay, after doing what it is that I just said that you should do, this is what it should look like. All the way around, okay? Now, if you look at this, that's a screw. But if you look at these two here that just came off, this one part came off of here, and this one was right inside. Okay, so this is a bolt, this is a screw. Bolts have fine threads, screws have coarse threads. Do not get those mixed up. Anytime that you're dealing with a bolt, you have a nut or something attached directly right to the engine. In this particular case, there is a nut, and you can see it right there. Okay, so be careful. Once you got that bolt removed, that can come loose. If it does, you gotta find it, look for it, Easter egg hunt, and put that back. Now that we got the arm off, now we can work on getting the rest of the stuff off. So what I want to do now is I want to take these, separate these two, and I think there's 6 screws here. Let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That seems to be it. I guess once we get those off, then the engine part can come off the fan parts, and we will look at that. The type of Torx bit that you will need is what I use. Mine is a removable T27. So if you look right closely, if it can focus, it's a T27. I got these off of Temu, so that way I can put them on a screwdriver and replace the heads. It's not a big deal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these off, and I'm going to put all my screws into a bucket here. Okay, so that didn't work because right down in the middle there is a screw, and you can see it from this angle. It's right in the middle on the center over there. So now what I got to do is I got to take off this part here. This part here is the air filter for the engine. And you take those two screws off. They don't come out because they're locked in. Here's what the air filter should look like. Okay? So, bring that back over there. Now work on everything else. Okay, so this top cover was this part here. Once again, screw does not come out. These three long screws came out of here. Okay, so to get this entire thing off, there's two screws right there that I found. There's one in the bottom right there. There's another one in the bottom. And then that should be it. Now it's loose. And looks like it comes off nicely. So what do we have here? Okay, we got the rewind. That's the rewind. And that's the rewind coil. And if we look around, it's kind of a bit dirty. But yeah, this can now sit right there. And now we can look at the engine. Okay, here's the flywheel. Flywheel's got the magnets on it. This here's the ignition coil. Goes directly right to the spark plug. And the on-off switch, which is right here, connected to the ignition coil, which go up to here. They do something, and then it goes all the way inside here to somewhere. Oh, it goes, yeah, to the handle here. And then there's your on-off switch right there. So that's right there is on. You push it down for off. On, off. Okay? So that's connected to the throttle cable, and there's another kink right there. What do you know? Alright, so the engine needs to come off of this part here. Let's look at that. So it looks like there's a screw right there. And there's a screw right there. And there's a screw right there. Let's see, this part here looks like it's separate. This is the air filter which connects to the carburetor. The carburetor is this right here. And this part, yeah, looks like, oh, well, what do you know? It's a separate primer bulb. That's the primer bulb right there. There's two tubes right there, which do go to the carburetor. Yeah, okay. And the muffler is held in. How's the muffler held in? I think it's, yeah, right into there. And these two. Those two holes, and that right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to attack those screws and see if I can pull off the engine. Okay, so the reason why I got the engine like this is so I can take the fuel tank off. There seems to be something underneath here which is keeping us all connected. So there's two screws on the bottom here. There's one right there, and there's one right there. There's also one right there. So I'm going to take all those three out, and then I'm going to carefully remove the gas tank. This has fuel in it. So what I'm going to do is some magical maneuver to take out the gas tank without spilling anything. These here are the fuel tanks. So this one here with the hose running to it goes to the carburetor. And this one goes to the carburetor as well. Anytime that you have a primer bulb, you will always have two fuel tanks going to the carburetor, or the fuel tank, okay? So those got to be removed carefully. Yes. Okay, so it was only two screws that needed to come out. And this is what they were attached to. Right there and right there, okay? After that, this can just slide right out. Now this is what the two fuel lines look like when you pull it out. Okay, so they look like they're kind of marked. So this one here's got a red stripe on it. That red stripe goes on the bottom part. And this one here with the writing on it goes onto the top part. But if you, yeah, one sucks the fuel into the carburetor, the other returns it back into the fuel tank. There is a way that you can do that. I will show it to you later if I have the time and daylight to do it. Okay, so this is what the fuel tank looks like. I just want to let everybody know that if you were to take off one of these, fuel is going to come squirting out. And that's because a fuel tank is always under pressure. To relieve that pressure, you loosen the cap on the fuel tank to get rid of that pressure. So once we have it off just a little bit loose, then there's no pressure on here. Then you can take off the tubing and no gas will go squirting out of any of these two hoses because you just relieved the pressure. Now you can tighten that back up. Now, if you're wondering, well, there's a valve right there. It relieves the pressure. That is actually not the case. You see, this here is a one-way valve. It lets the air into the gas tank, but it does not let the air up. This is only meant to relieve the pressure to let the air into the gas tank so it can the fuel can flow through the tubes here. There needs to be air coming into the gas tank to push that gas through the tubing into the carburetor. This is a one-way valve only, okay? Now, what the manufacturer went and did was they put a pictogram there. So the lower end probably goes to the primer bulb. The top part here looks like it chokes it. So we will analyze these two in a moment. What I went and did was I went and took some office clips and I went and clipped off the end of these tubes just in case fuel flows through there, just in case there's fuel left in the carburetor when we take everything apart. Okay, so now I'm going to put this aside and I'm going to look at this some more. And just as I suspected, there is that screw to take this entire thing off. So once we get that out, then this can just pop right out. So this will go directly right up. We could take this out too if you want. Doesn't matter. But that looks like the only screw that's holding in the housing together. It's apart. So that there and that there needed to come off. This is what it looks like. See that? So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 screws holding everything together. Now we can take this part and put it down. Now we got the engine all to ourselves. And just as normal fashion with a blower, this part here needs to come off because there is screws on the back which is holding the engine in. Just by looking at this, I can tell that there's writing right there. And it says off. It says off. And there's an arrow pointing this way. So this is taking off. So lefty tighty, righty loosey. Okay, so we're going to go in this direction to remove this wheel. Pay attention to that. Pay attention to that. Okay, once I get that loose, then the engine part, it's got those screws, and those screws are attached to the casing of this. Okay, let me see here. Yeah, it looks like it's going to be just a nice and easily slide right off. I hope it slides right off. You can see right there, there's a screw on the other side. One right there, one right there. Okay, so let me get this all worked on. Okay, so this is a 3/4 inch nut. Now this can come out and you're gonna see the oh frick. I gotta use both hands for this. So once we have that off, there's the screws right there that we gotta tack to get that engine off. Okay, so let's look at my screwdriver here. Where the heck did I put it? Because those could be a little bit bigger. Where did I put my screwdriver? Darn it. Anytime that you go to take these off, they will be stuck. They'll be naturally stuck, manufactured stuck. And that's because they got Loctite on the threads. So when you get to put these back on, you gotta torque them back on. And you gotta torque them off. They gotta snap when you make that. I don't think I can do it with the screwdriver here by hand, but you should hear a snap. And that means you've got it loose. And it's never been taken off before. Oh, crap. Yeah. I gotta use an actual socket to take that off. So if it snaps, that means you just took off the seal, which is not a big deal because you can put it back on the same way. But what that means is anytime that you take something off like this and it comes off loosely or very easily, it's because somebody else took it off previously. Okay? These are the 4 bolts that were attached to the engine, keeping the plastic part attached to the housing. So look at the threads and don't get these mixed up for any reason. Okay? So yeah, very important. Okay, so we're gonna flip this like a pancake. And oh yeah, I got a socket stuck in there because I was taking that other bolt off. But what we're going to do is just going to lift this off. It should lift off nicely. Oh, look at that. I'm just going to put it right there. Woohoo. Okay, now we just got this part here. What we're going to do is we're going to dunk this into some water and clean this up so it looks nice here. Okay, for now, we're just going to put it right there. Now we got the engine. Engine came out nicely as I had expected it to. So let's look at this side. Wow. And let's look. Oh, there's our throttle cable bit. Okay, let's look at our fuel lines, what they were hooked up to. Okay, one is hooked up to this side of the carburetor. The other one goes to the primer bulb. The other end of the primer bulb goes up to this side of the carburetor. That's the cycle of the separate primer bulb with a carburetor on a blower. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to remove the exhaust muffler. Okay, so these are the 3 bolts that took this muffler off. These are always going to look corroded on the top, and sometimes they'll look corroded on there, but these will be the most stuck nuts you will ever take off because of the heat. When this gets so hot, this is what's all rusted all to shit, that those nuts become a problem. So pay attention to these, don't lose them. They're easy to spot. They're the only 3 that will look so heavily damaged with heat. Goes into there. This can go aside. And now we got the muffler off. We can see the piston from this side. And I'm spinning. I don't see it yet, but I'm sure I will soon. Until then, let's continue taking everything off. Let's start with the muffler. Not the muffler, the air housing. So yeah, we'll take out those 3. Okay, I'm just doing this so everybody has an idea of what it should look like. You can put this on pause at any time. I know some of you want to have a look. The wiring. Okay. All right. So once we got this off, there's more pictograms. Pictograms on how to put it together. There is a gasket right there that you can see. Make sure that's not ripped because an airtight seal going to the carburetor is crucial for the proper functioning of the engine. This will be cleaned up, and this right here, this is what this looks like. This looks pretty nice. The blue seal that you see right there is what prevents dirt from getting in. It's an airtight seal. Here is everything that we're looking at with the carburetor. It's a different type of carburetor because it's got a tube right there going right to the cylinder, but it's not a big deal. That creates the vacuum for the air to go through, get sucked in. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to disconnect this throttle cable, just like that. That is out. This wire to shut off on off switch is right there. I just got to take that apart, and that can be disconnected. Right? Okay. And then pay attention to the tubing, like mark them if you want. And then we are left with the carburetor. We can get that off, and then we'll take this and everything on the spark plug out. Magneto, and I think that would be it. Oh, look at the white. The white part here is coming off loose. Not bad. So the carburetor now is out. This face here came off of that, and it was somewhat tight, but that black rubber there gasket is what keeps the airtight seal. Okay, so now we're going to just put this aside and clean it up, because I can't see a single thing. It's very dirty. The markings for this carburetor are right here. It's a Stihl carburetor, and the numbers are right there. So we'll put that right there. We'll get that out later. And now we're going to take off the ignition coil. Okay, so the magneto is off. This is what it looks like, right? There's a black piece that was attached to this, and it was this one here. Be careful of these black pieces because they're meant to go back onto there. Okay, so this was going right there. This can go into there too. Now the carburetor, be careful of this tubing. Keep that clean because that goes right there. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to take off this part here and the spark plug too. It looks to me like this rubber tubing can come off because it's tied on right there. And it looks like a regular slot head screwdriver. Okay, so I got the valve cover off. That is the cover. Be careful of the bolt. Don't mix it up. Keep it together. These are the valves. What does this tell you? This tells you that it's a 4-stroke. Anytime that there's valves, that this is a 4-stroke. Okay, so we're not going to touch the springs. We're not going to touch the adjustments on there. What we can do is we can take off the oh, well, we don't need to. What kind of, I want to look at the darn it. Okay, so let's turn the engine to make sure that the valves are working. Yes, they are. Okay, good. So I want to look at the piston, but I can't really see it. If I take this cover off, I think maybe I might be able to see it. So let's take this cover off. Okay, so when you take this cover off, you're going to notice like this is not a gasket. Somebody had went and put goop on here, and it looks like it was the manufacturer's goop. And this is what the internal engine part looks like. As you can see, it is the this I can't remember the name right now. And so it causes everything to work. If I was to try to turn this, you have an idea. Of how that works, eh? Okay, so I still can't see the piston like I want to, which means I would have to take the bottom part out. However, see, this is the part where I make a decision as to whether or not I really want to go all the way to take something apart just for the sake of taking it apart and showing you guys. Because in this particular case, I don't need to. And the reason why is because there's nothing really wrong with this cylinder or the piston. And the reason why I would know that is because of the, this has never been taken apart, but there's no other issues. The guy that brought it to me said that it was running and it would stay running. So if it was running and stayed running, then that would tell me that there's nothing wrong with the piston or the cylinder. So I'm going to decline on removing the piston. But if I did want to do that, it's those 4 bolts right there. You take that out, there's going to be a seal between these 2 metal parts. Just like you see the redness right there. The same group that's there is right there. So it's going to be stuck. You're going to force it off. Then this crank is going to come right out. The crank is going to come right out, and then you're going to be able to pull the connecting rod and the piston out from the bottom, which goes under. Okay, so I don't need to do that. All I need to do is that. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to clean everything up now. Soap, water, sponge, CLR, easy off oven cleaner, everything gets cleaned up, including the engine. Okay, and that is as far as I go, and because that's as far as I want to go. Yeah, when you go to put your magneto coil on, you need to put a proper gap between here and the magneto. What happened before is I took somebody else's blower apart and they just put it on, just like that, and then secured it. What happened was a groove was worn into the flywheel for it to work, and because of the grinding motion, it ground this down and it ground a groove into there, and it was still able to work. Unfortunately, it was shaking. Okay, so these flywheels are well balanced. Anytime that you take a piece of metal off there or grind it, it's going to be shaky. You're taking out the balance. Okay, so don't do that. I'm just going to start cleaning everything up now, and we'll look at the carburetor just a little bit more. Until then, I'm just going to spend some time on this. Okay, so I went ahead and took apart the handles so I could get a better look as to the throttle cable and the wiring. And this here is what one end looks like. So here's the wiring. So I found the problem, and the problem is that this guy was having, the owner, was this part here. This is the reason why the throttle was not working, was because it's broken. The throttle, the cable casing is broken, and the cable itself is shredded. Okay, so what I'm gonna have to do is I'm gonna have to cut it right here, pull the cable and the casing out, and replace it with a new one that I bought from Canadian Tire. Now this one is a bit longer than this one, so it's gonna have to be custom cut, custom everything to fit this and replace this one, which should not be a big deal. So this part here cost me about $7.50 Canadian. And as for these, I took pictures as to how this should look, but this handle can be cleaned up a little bit. Everything can be greased and lubricated. Okay, so you have your timing gear out, and you went and stripped everything apart like you have done, and now you need to know how to put that in properly. So even though I got the bottom part here still on, you can still do it. If you look through the hole there, you can see the piston. So just kind of keep that piston right on the center, as close as you can, or exactly as you can. And then you're going to see 2 marks. There's a indent right here, and there's one right here. You see that? Now, when you look at this part here, you're going to see 2 arrows. There's an arrow there, and there's an arrow there. Okay? Those 2 arrows point at those two indents. So when you put it in, line that hole up. Those arrows should be pointing at the indents appropriately. Then you put your center pin in, just like that. And then you can now put everything back together. Those onto there, and then just like that. That is how you do the timing on a Stihl br800 C. Okay.